There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Star Wars Canon Podcast, episode 78. I am your host, Brian Miller, and I'm so glad you've decided to join me to talk about our favorite thing in the world, yet again, Star Wars. And we have a veritable shipload of stuff to talk about this week. We've got San Diego Comic-Con to cover, we've got D23 to cover, and to navigate all of it, to help me get through all of this stuff is my Wookiee co-pilot from across the pond in Cairo, Egypt, is my good friend and co-host, Usef Wally. How are you today, buddy?
Hello. I am indeed an Egyptian Wookiee. I am hairier than this. I just shaved it. I toned it down for y'all. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to unpack a lot of Star Wars news. It's always good to talk Star Wars, to talk to you in general. You're such a great friend, and it's amazing that we haven't actually met in person just yet. Hopefully, we'll be in person together soon. We'll meet each other in person, whether it's here or there, where you are, and we'll do a proper live episode. And that'd be amazing if we get to do that.
Oh, that'd be awesome. And in studio.
Exactly.
I got a couch down there. I've got some extra mics. Like, we can do this. And it's funny you say that, because I was talking with a friend of mine in the town that I work in, not this town, but another town that I work in. And she's actually the editor-in-chief of the newspaper there. She's the one that did this article. I don't know if you guys can see me on the video, but like behind me, I have this plaque of a front page story that they did on me last year for May the 4th. It was her idea to do that, and she's really cool. And I was sitting and talking with her yesterday, and we got on the subject of the podcast, and she was talking about that, it'd be so cool to figure out a way to get you over here so that we could do something like that. I'm like, yeah, that'd be awesome. We talk about that all the time. I think
that would be awesome. Absolutely awesome. Can't wait.
It'd be a lot of fun. So,
and there's a lot for us to talk about today. We're very excited.
There is. Kirsty and I are going to try to make a trip to Egypt here before long, and I know that's a huge feat. We have a lot of airline miles saved up, so I think we're going to be able to pull it off at some point. We'll see. We'll be in touch, buddy. And if I come,
do you want? I'm gonna have a surprise for you on the note of this podcast episoding. Would you like to know what it is now, or do you want to wait until we do it?
Lay it on me.
We're gonna record an episode at one of my favorite spots, which is now officially open to the public. It's at the base of the effing pyramids. We're gonna go there during the day in some shade, so we won't die of heat stroke.
That'd be so.
I mean,
amazing.
you won't anyway. You're used to the heat over there, but trust me, over here is heat. You're gonna chill. We're gonna have lots of water there, so you're not dehydrated either. And we're gonna get ourselves some small mics, and we're gonna get there. We're gonna have our own episode where and then we're gonna add some graphics behind us where you can see the Death Star just coming in from behind us, and then like a proper,
be amazing.
Everything just above the pyramids right there.
It look like Jeddah, Jeddah City. That'd be amazing. And
exactly.
We've talked at length before about when we come to visit. I'm bringing you some proper American liqueur. I'm bringing you some Crown Royal, just because you've never had Crown Royal. I can't believe that. That's my drink of choice. I love Crown Royal. So I'm gonna be bringing you a couple bottles of that.
If I make friends at the American Embassy, I might be able to get that stuff over, which is easy for them. They got like stockpiles of whatever it is they want. But yeah, anyway, that's something else. The conversation for another time.
It is. It's good stuff. So, all right, let's get into the Star Wars stuff. Like you said, we've got a lot to talk about. This is probably going to be a monster of an episode. And then let's just jump right into it. Let's start with the big news first. Let's start with the big stuff out of D23. Now, I know D23 happened after San Diego Comic-Con did, but let's talk about this first, because I think this is the bigger news out of everything so far. We finally, we didn't, but the people at D23 got to see the trailer, or a teaser trailer for The Mandalorian and Grogu. This is the next Star Wars film set for release as of now. It is set for release in May of 2026. And I don't know if I should say this. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one. I've seen like a hand cam footage of the trailer. It was all right. It was a cool trailer. But they've only been filming for a couple of weeks, but I'm still, kind of, even with this trailer, even though I saw it, it still just feels like they're gearing up for a season of Mando again. And it's something that we've already done 3 times in the past. To me, I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around the fact that this is a film. Star Wars is going back to the big screen. And so, Yusuf, I don't know if you saw the trailer for it. I don't know if I kind of gave you a little bit of a rundown of what I saw in it.
Exactly.
Are you excited for this movie?
Extremely, 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 extremely excited for it. I want it to be a movie. Like, I feel like it deserves a culmination. I feel like, I mean, if they end up, they're not going to end up giving us a season next year before the movie, right? They're fully filming a movie. It's not going to be like, yeah, exactly. So the next chapter is going to be a movie before they do, hopefully, the movie we're looking forward to, which is going to be a culmination between everything in the Mandoverse and hopefully maybe the big three show up, Luke, Leia, and Han. I hope so, in that big culmination movie. Yeah, but then so this initial movie, Mando Grogu movie, that's going to be really good. I'm really, really, really excited for that. Honestly, it's so Mandalorian has given us some substantial storytelling in its own right within the Star Wars universe. They didn't even have to do all the fan service that they did. And they did it anyway. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
So this is a huge, 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 wonderful, beautiful, bright spot in Star Wars storytelling, lore, everything. So I'm not even going to treat this like an event just for the sake of this argument. I'm just going to talk about it just like I'm talking about any story. It's such a good story within the Star Wars universe that so I liked a lot Clone Wars. I really liked Rebels. I liked Rebels more simply because it's leading to some place that I haven't seen yet, because afterwards we saw Ahsoka and then the end of Canon and all that. Then we saw Ezra coming back. So there's a lot coming. Then Thrawn, but then we were only able to see all of that because Mando opened up that sort of possibility. It's so good as a storytelling narrative that it gave us this possibility. That's how good Mando and Grogu are. So I want to see more Mando and Grogu. I don't want it to be overplayed though. So I can't wait for a movie if it's going to be a culmination or just a major, huge milestone, stepping stone, so that maybe future shows or movies will all of a sudden surprise us. Let's say, Brian, like 4 or 5 years down the line, which in terms of Star Wars events and storytelling isn't that long because you're going to get the Mando movie and then you're going to get a few, maybe 1 or 2 shows or movies. But what if we got another spinoff or another show or something else entirely, or a comic book or novel, and all of a sudden they say a man in silver, shiny Mandalorian armor came forward and he was having this tiny little Grogu coming with him, green, with also his own armor. Oh, well, Din Djarin and Grogu showed up in this thing. And we're going to love that because they're bringing in these amazing characters. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to basically flip it so that because now Mando and Grogu are so important that they're going to be considered wow factors. That's how big they are. It's fantastic, right?
Yeah, no, it is. And I'm hoping this movie ends up being bigger than just like an extended episode of Mandalorian. I'm hoping that I hope the scale of, I hope it feels different than, and don't get me wrong, I love the Mandalorian. I love the show. I love the way it feels. I like that it's a self-contained story, fits in its own little box. I like that. But if you're going back to the big screen with Star Wars, you've got to get the scale up on it. You got to make what we've already had before in the small scale feel
the excitement,
large.
the milestones, the events, everything. Yeah.
It's got to have that feel to it again. Like you said, the event feeling, because we haven't had a Star Wars movie since 2019. And this is the first one. This has to be an event. This has to be a huge thing, right? So I'm hoping that the movie lives up to all of our expectations. It's not just, 3 episodes of The Mandalorian tacked together into one movie. You know what I mean? I hope it's not that.
Because that's exactly the worry. Because, I mean, everything with all these TV shows coming out, I mean, it's good and bad, right? It's good because obviously it's great. We're getting content. It's bad because it takes away that major event feeling.
Yeah.
Because it's not one huge shot you're looking at and it's fantastic and it's a brilliant event. And then at the same time, you can say, well, actually, the risk you're running here is, you know, they're basically doing, if they're doing 10 episodes and each of them is an hour, you know, that's like 5 movies, 4 or 5
Yeah.
movies, depending on how long the movie is. So they could just basically turn 2 or 3 episodes into an extra long movie, and that's that.
On
We're
our-
just doing a little bit, just some more Mando, and just you know, we're cutting some of the waiting times in the episode, and we're gonna make it feel cool. And that's that. That's not what we want, is it?
And the other reason I'm worried about it too is because even with Book of Boba Fett, we took a break from Book of Boba Fett for 2 weeks and did 2 episodes of Mandalorian in the middle of it.
Mando in the min there, in the
Like, yeah, and so it's like, what I mean, I worry that that's what it's gonna feel like. But the other thing I want to talk about with Mandalorian and Grogu is, and if I wish Nick was on this week because and you already know where I'm going with this. He is dead set that this movie is not going to move its release date. He is completely sold on the fact that this movie is not going to move because we have a release date of May of 2026, May 1st, I believe. And 3 weeks later, Avengers Doomsday is coming out in the same month, with 3 weeks later. And I mean, say what you will about Solo. I know Solo had some problems for some people. There was a lot of things going on behind the scenes with Solo. People didn't like the movie. That's not the movie they wanted. People loved it. It was just this weird hodgepodge of different opinions on it. So say what you will about it, but the box office heard on it. And I mean, it did, because right before that movie came out was Avengers Endgame. It came out, or was it Infinity War? I'm sorry, Infinity War came out. Was it Infinity War? No,
I can't remember now.
one of the Avengers movies came out. I think it was Infinity War, came out right. I mean, maybe it was right after. And I feel like there was a little bit, I mean, say what you will, whatever issue you want to blame Solo's box office on, that's fine. But I feel like there was a little bit of Disney playing cannibal with their own movies there. And I can't help but wonder if one of these movies is going to move. And I'll tell you right now, if one of them is going to move, and I want your opinion on this, if one of these movies is going to move, I'm saying right now it's going to be Mando and Grogu. It's going to move to the holiday season, because so far that's where Star Wars movies have thrived since Disney took over. We've had one movie release in May, and it was Solo.
Especially with the toys and the hype. I understand. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, and that's the other thing, the toys. Grogu is that
the major
guy
toy. It is
was
the
made
toy.
for toys. Like, that's what it was, and it's right for the holiday. So, what are your thoughts? Do you think either of these movies are going to move? Are they playing chicken with themselves? And if one of them is going to move, which one is it?
So we almost have I'll make this argument. The buildup is completely different. So if you look back to what happened, one of the Avengers movies had insane. It was 10 years of buildup to those movies, right? To Infinity War and Endgame. Whereas Han Solo, there wasn't a lot of buildup to that movie. It was building up to Star Wars fans and people hoping to see a little bit of, let's reminisce a bit on this newer version of Harrison Ford. I'm thinking people who aren't intensely into Star Wars were thinking that if they were going to see the movie. So that's why it really hurt, because it wasn't the same vibe. It wasn't what everybody was looking for. And it was a challenge introducing a new character. Got some pretty big boots to fill. A pretty big vest to fill as well.
You're
but
right.
The thing is that here, this time, Mando and Grogu, there's been a lot of buildup for them. There's a lot of support for them. I think that there's a lot going for it, that it stands on its own 2 feet. And that it can really, the reason why it's in May is because of Star Wars Day, May the 4th, and so on. Exactly. So this is very important for it to be in May. I actually think, so Nick has won me over.
Has he?
Initially, I thought, just as an opinion, I'm not trying to predict anything. Oh, the one prediction I will make is that if one of them moves, Star Wars, Mando and Grogu is going to move. If one of them moves, Avengers is too big, and the Marvel audience is far more important in general to appease than the Star Wars audience, because the Star Wars audience has proven, unfortunately, that it does not get appeased by anything. It's never happy, even when it gets everything it wants. So, it's never gotten everything it wants, but yeah, that's what I think. But
we've also had several Marvel movies come out since Endgame came out. We haven't had any Star Wars movies. We've had Marvel shows, we've had Marvel movies come out, but we've only ever had Star Wars TV shows come out.
The problem with Marvel, though, is that they're trying to steer back to getting max viewership. I've stopped watching Marvel intensely. Same. I've watched a little bit of the shows, not enough. And I'll say this, it's not enough. I should be watching more, but it's not grabbing me my attention anymore. I'll go back and watch Falcon and Winter Soldier when it comes out, the next one. but that's just because I love Captain America. So I'm wearing a Captain America t-shirt right now. And like the thing is that what I was trying to say is that, because Mando Grogu has so much support, and this Marvel movie is going to be such a big happening. It's going to be such a big thing. And those major announcements that they had in Marvel, with Robert Downey Jr. coming back and all this stuff, right?
And I think that's going to be a huge factor in it.
It's going to be huge. So this is why it's got so much hype built around it. Everything they've worked on for the past 10, 15 years with Marvel, this is going to be a continuation of that. Mando Grogu has had a lot of hype as well. That's why I think it will stand on its own 2 feet. But if one of them's going to move, I'm not a betting man, but if I was, I would think that Mando Grogu would move rather than, barring any filming issues. I don't mean like, so I'm not saying like, let's say everything went to plan and they're okay with filming on the dates, releasing on the dates that they're going to release on. Like, it's not an issue with production, then they would keep the dates as they are, right? What if it's an issue with maximizing, movie goers' income and revenues? Some people want to go see films 2, 3 times, 4 times. If they want to do that, they're not going to go see 2 films necessarily. That happened really rarely with the Barbenheimer, Barbie and Oppenheimer.
Right.
That was very, very rare
to
have that happen. And it was wild as well. It was a whole trend. And they were from 2 different studios and movie and everything. It was amazing. This was quite rare. So for this to happen as well in this way, I don't know. I think it might happen. And I think that Star Wars would be well served for this movie to come out at the beginning of May. And this would be fantastic. This would be a great event, a movie event. And there's a lot of hype behind it. And hopefully by that time, it's 2 years away. It's just under 2 years away.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of news. Going to be a lot of stuff coming out later. We're going to know more about the movies coming out later. We're going to know more about the films, the novels, the comics. I'm almost, and I was going to ask you this question when we were talking before, but would you think that we'd get some sort of novel or comic talking about this time in between where we finished last season of Mando and Grogu of The Mandalorian? After Bo-Katan Grease becomes the new Mandalorian leader and all that, up until this next film, do you think we're going to get something in the middle? Might be a comic book, might be a novel, might be something. Do you think we're going to get something? Yeah, absolutely. You see, so they're going to be doing this stuff for Star Wars fans, because probably not really intense Star Wars fans. They wouldn't really be reading this kind of stuff. Just like I'm not a big comic book reader. I'm not a comic book reader at all, if I'm honest with you. I just read the novels. But they're going to service this even better than it's already serviced.
This is going to be and like you said, it's still 2 years away, but this is going to be the first year. We haven't had an Avengers movie since 2019, and we haven't had a Star Wars movie since 2019. So having them 3 weeks apart, like you said, that's if neither of them moves, that's going to be May is going to be an awesome month for 2026. That's going to be an awesome month for movies.
It's a huge start to the summer.
But I don't know, man. I'm not a betting man either. I like to die on hill. I die on hills all the time, but I'm not a betting man.
Yeah, I understand.
And I think this is a hill I'm going to die on. I think Star Wars is
you would think that Star Wars would move as well, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. If one of them would move. Yeah.
No, I don't even think it's a matter of if. I think Star Wars.
You think it will? You think
it is? I think
you think this isn't.
Anything can happen in 2 years. Anything can happen in the next 2 years, and I truly think Star Wars is going to move.
And again, barring any production issues, we're talking about just for the fact of sales here.
Well, here's the other thing too. Granted, Marvel's not in a great place cinematically right now either. With Wolverine and Deadpool coming out.
That's the whole point of them doing an Avengers movie.
Right. And so it's been kind of lackluster since Endgame. A couple of the shows have been great. A couple of the movies have been not bad, but for the most part, it's like, and like you said, falling out of Marvel a little bit. There was a time when we were counting down to the next Marvel movie. We're like, well, when's the next one coming out? And now we're past that, and so, but at the same time, they're still putting content out. Star Wars has only been putting out a couple of shows, a lot of them being animated. And, I feel like Star Wars and Lucasfilm have a lot more trust to gain back with the movie-going audience than Marvel does. At least Marvel's putting movies out. At least they're trying, and so I And then, man, look at Wolverine and Deadpool too. Like that, it seems like that has reinvigorated everybody with Marvel again. I went and saw it opening night. That movie was wild. That movie was bonkers because I remember why in the theater was packed. There was not an empty seat in our theater, and there were moments in our theater where people were standing up and screaming and cheering during that movie. And I was like, this is going to get people fired back up for Marvel again, and especially with the announcement of Robert Downey Jr. coming back and everything. So, Mando and Grogu, we've seen it. We got 3 seasons of it, you know, and it's like it's so. I feel like they're going to move Star Wars for the sake of making sure that it has its own place to thrive in the holiday season, because Mando and Grogu has always come out during the holiday season. It is always, those seasons always come out right around the time when the family is all sitting down together, Thanksgiving, Christmas, right around those times. And I think this is going to be no different. I feel like they're going to put the message out. Oh, you know, all those holiday times when your family came to visit you and you got to watch Mando and Grogu on TV at home. Now you guys
ready for another one.
Yeah. And so I'm telling you right now, I'm going to die on this hill. This is my prediction. This movie is going to move to December of 2026. It's just going to. And I know Lucasfilm has said we're getting 3 movies between 2026 and 2027. They can still do it if they move this movie to December of 2026. Then you've got May of 2027, and you've got, which is another Avengers movie. So we got to talk about that one too. Secret Wars is supposed to be coming out then. And then you've got, so I don't know how this is going to go. Maybe this one won't move, and then it's going to get eaten alive by Avengers, and they're going to go, no, we're moving the next one next year against Secret Wars. That might happen too. But I'm going to die on this hill for right now. It's going to move. So that's my prediction.
That's fair, though. I understand where you're coming from. Completely understand.
And I will fight Nick on that every single day in the chat. I know he is dead set that neither of them are going to move. I'll die on that hill. I will die on that hill. So that does it for movie news for right now. Let's get into Skeleton Crew. So we have got a lot to talk about with Skeleton Crew. At San Diego Comic-Con, they gave us a little bit of info on it. Some photos got released of the kids. And the synopsis of the show, which reads, Star Wars Skeleton Crew tells the story of 4 kids who find themselves lost in the vastness of the galaxy, trying to find their way home. That's the official story for Skeleton Crew. And we got some information on the character that Jude Law is playing. We know that he's going to be a Jedi type character who can use the Force. His name is, and I'm probably going to butcher this. You guys know I'm no good with names, but he's playing a character named Jod Nawud. Jod Nawud, I think is how you say it. I'm probably butchering it. And he's described as joyful and full of references to the original films and current series. So I'm assuming the current series they're talking about are Mando, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka. I'm assuming that's what he's got references to. So we got that, and then
it ain't Acolyte. I mean, he's talking about that.
And then just a couple of weeks later at D23, we got the official trailer for the Skeleton Crew. Finally, we've been kind of waiting on it, kind of like nervous, right? Because of what we've heard about the show and like what it's going to be. And we're like, what's this really going to end up being? Usef, you saw this trailer. What did you think of it? Are you excited for this show? What were some of the vibes you got from it? And what are you looking forward to in this one?
It looks nice. It looks family oriented. I won't say a children's movie because it doesn't feel like that. It feels like a family movie. It feels fun. It looks nice. It looks like something I want to watch. It looks like something that's going to be an easy thing to watch, easy thing to follow. And it seemed there was this thing, and I totally felt it, but then Nick said it best as well. It felt like a bit of Suburbia a little bit. You know, if you haven't watched Skeleton Crew, hopefully we may try to put up a little bit of footage on here on this video as well. It felt like a little bit of Suburbia. It felt like something approachable. Felt like, so obviously one of the major objectives of Lucasfilm in the coming content period is trying to show more sides of the galaxy, right?
Sure.
Trying to see more and more parts of what the galaxy and what life in Star Wars galaxy looks like. We've seen huge, bustling, futuristic capital planets. We've seen planets that still have a huge connection with nature, and then outposts in the middle of nowhere, and then big, bad Sith bases and Emperor bases, and sorry, not Sith bases, but yeah, Emperor bases and then the Empire bases, excuse me. Yeah, so we haven't seen how do people live on a day-to-day basis enough. So this is that. This is people living in a normal context, as normal as we can relate to. And then there's a little adventure that goes on there. And obviously there's a Jedi character in there as well. So we don't know enough about the story, about what's actually going to happen, what kind of drama is it, what's going to, I mean, is there, for example, like I'm not sure if a character is going to die. Like how violent is the show implying that? I mean, the trailer hasn't implied that there's too many violence in the first place. I'm not expecting a lightsaber duel, for example, in Skeleton Crew. Not a proper one. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What do you
Yeah,
think?
I agree with you. I really, I a lot of people were put off by, like you said, the suburbia kind of feel to it. I didn't mind it. I mean,
No, me neither.
there's
Me
gotta
neither.
be, there's gotta be areas of the galaxy that have that kind of, society.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because I mean, we were talking about Solo.
I mean, they're not all desolate like Luke
Right,
on Tatooine, and they're
right.
not all going to be
Um,
like Coruscant, huge, massive planets or capital
Alderaan,
planets.
yeah, exactly.
All
So,
around, yeah.
I mean, we were talking about Solo earlier. Ron Howard directed Solo, and he put a lot of his, car cruising feel kind of into that chase with Solo and Moloch at the beginning, and with the drifting of the speeders around and stuff and everything like. And I mean, even Bail Organa's speeder in Revenge of the Sith looked like a classic car. It looked like something out of American Graffiti, So I those speeders are out there, those cars are out there, if you want to call them cars. I didn't see anything wrong with it. I think they made it look just enough Star Wars to make it believable that it's in Star Wars. And I thought it was a great touch. It really did feel like, one of the things they focused on talking about with this show was the feel of like those old Amblin productions. And that's exactly what this felt like.
Yes, that's a
It felt
really
like
good
80s.
shout.
And
That's a really good shout.
so I really,
Amblin, Beethoven, and stuff.
well,
Yes, the
yeah,
dog.
yeah,
Oh my
that
god.
that studio. And so it really did have that feel to it, especially when they get onto the ship for the first time and the skeletons there with the cobwebs on it. It felt very
Yeah,
Goonies.
yeah, yeah.
The kids, look like they're gonna be, I can already tell I'm gonna like some of these kids. I don't know about all of them, but I can tell you I'm gonna like some of the kids. That weird, I don't even know what his species is, and you guys are probably screaming at me for it because I don't know his species. The same species as Max Rebo, the blue alien kid with the I'm gonna love that kid. I already love him, and so I'm really looking forward to this. One of the biggest things I've talked about with this show, especially when I was still with Newsnet and talking with them about this show, and every time it came up, I'm going to rehash it here because I don't think I've had a chance to. There was a show back in the 90s that I watched, and yeah, back in the 90s, I'm dating myself here. I'm not as, I'm still a young whippersnapper to some of you guys, but to a lot of you, if you grew up in the 90s, you're going to know what I'm talking about. I was born in the 80s, raised in the 90s. So I was a Nickelodeon kid. I always watched Nickelodeon, every day. That was, I watched, yeah, I remember the beginning of the end of Nickelodeon.
Rugrats for life.
Yes. Rocco's Modern Life, Ren and Stimpy. That's what I grew up watching, Rocket Power. Like the beginning of the end for Nickelodeon was Jimmy Neutron. And I don't care what you say, that was the beginning of the end for Nickelodeon. But I remember every Saturday night they did like a 2-hour block of 4 shows, and it was called Snick. Saturday Night Nick is what it was called. And there was one show that they always played that I fell in love with the moment I saw the first episode. Nobody I've ever talked to has ever heard of this show. Nobody has ever heard of this show. Maybe you guys have, maybe not. I don't know. Space Cases. I don't know if you guys ever watched Space Cases, but it was the story of these 5 cadets from different planets in the solar system who were going to this academy in our solar system that were like delinquent students. They were failing students. They weren't, they weren't going to be able to do their field test. And when they find out they're not going to be able to do their field test, they're all down and dejected and everything. And they look out the window and there's this alien ship outside. And they're like, what if we went and made contact with an alien race? We'd be awesome. We'd make history. And so they decide they're going to sneak aboard this ship without anybody knowing. And they get aboard the ship, and the ship like bonds with them. And while they're exploring the ship, the teacher and the principal from the academy find out that they're on the ship, and they go after them to try to get them off of it. And the ship takes off with everybody on it, and it goes through this like black hole in space, this white hole, I should say. And it puts them so far away from the academy that there's this android on the ship that calculates that it's going to take, and I remember this, 7 years, 4 months, and 22 days to get back. And they're like, but what are we going to do? And they all start arguing and like trying to figure out how they're going to get back. And they're just kids, right? It's a kids show. It's for kids. It's not for us. It's for kids. And so every episode was them trying to get closer and closer. It was kind of like Star Trek Voyager. It was a lot like Star Trek Voyager. And I've even, thought that maybe Farscape ripped it off a little bit. But Space Cases. And from the moment they talked about what this show was going to be, I was like, it's going to be a ripoff of Space Cases. I know it's going to be. Like, nobody knows Space Cases. They could probably get away with ripping it off and nobody would know. And then when I saw this trailer and they're in the academy and everything with their teachers, I'm like, gee, here we go. Yeah, it's what it is. It's a ripoff of Space Cases. So, and I was hoping that the trailer would deter me from that, and it actually solidified it for me. I was like, nope, this is exactly what this is going to be. Which is fine with me. If you take Space Cases, put a Star Wars skin on it, that's cool. If you get that, if you take Space Cases, E.T., and Goonies, and you put a Star Wars skin on it, it looks like that's what this is going to be to me. So I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a cool show. I'm willing to give it a shot. I think
same exactly.
I think it's gonna be underrated. I think it's gonna be a surprise. I think it's gonna be a surprise show. I think people are gonna like it more than what they are thinking they're going to. So that is Skeleton Crew. It is set for release on December 3rd right now, right around the holidays when everybody's going to be coming home. The same time in 2 years we're going to be watching Mando and Grogu. But yeah, so that's set for December 3rd. If you haven't seen the trailer, go check it out. It's a pretty cool trailer. And let us know what you guys think. Let's get on to some comic book news because we've got quite a bit of comic book news. Actually, we have a lot of comic book news to talk about. And I'm kind of excited about some of this. I'm going to start low, my lower expectations. I'm going to start there and we're going to work our way up to the stuff I'm like really, really excited for. Bring it on. So the first thing we are going to talk about is they've announced a trilogy of, I think 4 or 5 issue runs, starting on October 2nd. And it's going to be surrounding the Battle of Jakku, something we don't have a whole lot of info on. We've had a lot of Canon material kind of touch on it. And kind of, some of the stuff has happened in it. Battlefront 2's campaign, there's a whole level for Battle of Jakku. But the Battle of Jakku was so huge that it's impossible to tell that entire story in one medium, in one sitting, in one thing, in one book, one comic, one movie. You could do a whole movie on the Battle of Jakku and you'd never cover it all. And so they're doing a trilogy of 4 issue runs, so 12 issues total. Surrounding the Battle of Jakku. The first of the trilogy is going to be called The Battle of Jakku Insurgency Rising. Like I said, it comes out on October 2nd. And the description for it is this: in the wake of the Battle of Endor, can Luke, Leia, and the nascent New Republic stave off an unexpected and deadly new threat? A defiant Imperial takes center stage and goes on the offensive against the New Republic. Leia makes a startling discovery in the forests of Endor. Who are the mysterious and deadly acolytes of the Beyond? What is the new villain's connection to Darth Vader? All of this as the post-Return of the Jedi storytelling begins. So I'm assuming this is what's going to kick off all the next ongoing Star Wars run that's going to take place after Return of the Jedi. There's a lot there to unpack, Usef. There's so much there to talk about. Cool stuff. I mean, the stuff that sounds really cool. It sounds like there's going to be some references to the Princess and the Scoundrel novel. Sounds like there's going to be a lot of references to the Aftermath trilogy. There's a lot of stuff that's in there. That's just the first 4 issues that they're touching on there. Usef, I want to know what your thoughts are on these Acolytes of the Beyond, because this sounds like something I think you would really enjoy. I know you really like villains. I know you get into the dark side of things. I love that. And we've had a little bit of info on the Acolytes of the Beyond in the Aftermath trilogy and the interlude chapters. But is this something that excites you to hear about this cult that is like infatuated with Palpatine and Vader? I mean, are you excited to pick up? I know you said earlier you're not so much of a comic guy, but with this being surrounding, the Battle of Jakku, is this something that you think you're going to end up picking up?
If I can access it easily, then I'll definitely pick up all the comics surrounding it as well. I even go backwards and read some more if I can access them online. Online, I'll do that.
On the line.
On the line. So wait, the first point, which I really I'm very excited for about the books before the point of this villainous cult, which is like infatuated with Vader and Sidious, which as they
Yeah.
should be, because this is the end of that era. So they're completely like for Vader, for Sidious, for the Sith, potentially for the Sith. We're not sure yet, but um, the action. I am yet to read an action-oriented Star Wars novel and not really like it.
Hmm.
I'm serious, regardless of the writer. I'm not sure if that's just me fanboying Star Wars and just loving action, but seriously, Star Wars novels do action really well. The only real fiction that I read apart from Star Wars novels at the moment, other than like awesome novels that shouldn't be missed and trying to read a little bit more, is something called the Praetorian series, the Eagle of Rome series. It's by Simon Scarrow, and he's following two Roman legionnaires. One of them is really old, and the other one's really much younger. He's about half his age. And the younger guy, he's the one who went to an officer's academy in the Emperor's palace, and he was all that. He's not of royalty. On the contrary, he was actually, his father was just a soldier, so he got handpicked and chosen because he was really bright and really smart. And he goes off on these adventures all around the Roman Empire. He comes to Egypt. He goes around. He solves this whole mysterious thing with the Praetorians trying to overthrow the Caesar of the time in Rome. He goes to Britain a few times. He goes to Germania a couple of times. Anyway, that kind of one of the reasons why I love that novel is because there's action all over the place. With Star Wars novels, whenever it's got action in there, I rate it just as highly as I rate those other novels because it's so exciting, it's so intense. So I can't wait to see something like the Battle of Jakku, which is, you're circulating this entire story. You're building an entire trilogy to basically explain or give some more light around this huge battle, around a culmination of such a big part of this Star Wars era, an empire crumbling, and the sort of dying. How do you say this? The dying force of the empire, because it's a force to be reckoned with, and it is not. It is the ultimate force in the galaxy, and they're all of a sudden they're crumbling because they just lost their figurehead not too long before the Battle of Jakku, and then here they are. This is going to be. I think this is really intense, and then we move on to this fact that the villains sound fantastic. A little bit later in this episode, I'll be talking about my experience with High Republic because that's interesting to touch on the villains there because I'm just barely into it. But I want to see more villains, more Star Wars villains, and I want to see them in action. Like I want to see what they do, how scary they are, why they're doing whatever it is that they're doing. A lot of Star Wars villains, they're just power hungry for the sake of power. They're just, they're good, they're big, they're bad, they're you know, I want to see more of what motivates the villain in Star Wars. So this sounds like something fantastic if they're trying to hold on to remnants of what they think is right, and this is if they're a sort of cult which idealizes their lord and their leader, and they think that they bring order to a chaotic galaxy, and without them everything would just crumble. That's actually such a what I like to think in my head of as an honest villain. Does that make sense? An
Yeah,
honest
no, it
villain.
absolutely does. Yeah.
Yeah. So this honest villain is extremely interesting to see, but I'm not sure. I don't. Does it make sense also for me to say I don't want Luke or Jedi? The whole this there aren't many Jedi at that time in life in Star Wars. I don't want any of those to show up. I just want to see the galaxy pan out the way it would.
Hmm.
You know what I mean on a ground level.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
this trilogy of comics is taking place over the course of a year. I think it was a year between the Battle of Endor and the Battle of Jakku. And so if we're getting 12 issues, you're averaging an issue a month.
So it
I
might start with the death of the Emperor and
That's
Vader.
what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's going to
Yeah.
start at that point. And the thing that worries me about this series, and don't get me wrong, I'm excited for it, but there's a reason it's at the bottom of my excitement list for the comics. I'm wondering if this isn't going to end up being just an abridged version of some of the events that we've gotten in other novels. So, like The Princess and the Scoundrel, it talks in there, but Leia makes a startling discovery in the Forest of Endor. The book's been out for 2 years, so I'm going to talk about it. There's a moment in that book where she's on Endor after the events of everything that happened in Return of the Jedi, and she's walking around on the ground, in the woods, and she finds Vader's funeral pyre that Luke had built, and she finds the
Wow.
remains of Vader, and she's having this moment. She finds Vader's helmet that's all melted and disfigured, like we saw in The Force Awakens, and she's talking to it and telling it how much she hates him, how much she hates Anakin, and how much she hates Vader. Even though Luke saw him redeemed, she still hates him for everything that he put her through, and she can't forgive him. And she starts to feel the dark side rising up in her. And so she wasn't expecting to find something like that. And so I'm assuming that's what they're talking about. Leia makes a startling discovery in the forests of Endor. What else could it be? Right? Because that entire time period is taken up by Princess and the Scoundrel, and that's in there. Because once they leave Endor for the Halcyon in that novel, none of it, the rest of it's on Endor. You know what I mean? So I think I'm worried that we're going to get some abridged stuff from the Aftermath trilogy and from the Princess and the Scoundrel in here. The only thing that I think we're going to get new is actually in the second part of the trilogy, which is called Under Siege. It's launching in November. Excuse me. It's going to be it's going to be 4 issues also, I believe. But what we have on it is Mon Mothma and Leia must make a difficult decision to deal with the defiant Imperial hellbent on preserving the legacy of Palpatine and Vader. We know that that's Gallius Rax from the Aftermath trilogy. Luke hunts for a lost Jedi relic, but makes a startling discovery. That excites me. And I'm wondering, I don't know what the lost Jedi relic could be, because we know he gets the compass in Battlefront, which is kind of leading up to the Battle of Jakku. So that could be what he's looking for. The underworld simmers with intrigue as an unholy alliance is formed, and a ragtag group of New Republic heroes sets out on a mission, and their return is not guaranteed. So it just seems like the middle part in this trilogy where things are going to be starting to ramp up. And then the third part launches in December. It's called Last Stand. And everything we have on Last Stand is: who is the mysterious Reyna Oscar, and what does her influence over the Defiant Imperial mean for the New Republic? Does the Defiant Imperial have an Inquisitor by his side? That's interesting to think about, because we got Merrick in the Ahsoka series. That's really the only other Inquisitor it could possibly be. And that excites me. Our villain consolidates his power, but at what cost? And an iconic familiar face arrives to save the captured heroes. So I'm excited. It kind of gives away a little bit of what's going to happen in the second part. If the heroes get captured, then we know that's going to happen in the second part. But overall, this seems like a really cool trilogy. It's going to come out over the course of like 2 months, so we're going to get it pretty quick. But it takes place, I'm assuming, over the course of a year. So as a trilogy, does this excite you, Usef? I know you were talking about you're excited for the first part, but all of it together, based off of what we know from the Aftermath trilogy and everything like that, is this something you think you're going to pick up, or are you just going to read some of these events as you go through the novels?
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to pick the whole thing up. I want to stay up to date on the new material, and this really excites me. Something really good about the new material. I want to stay up to date because I want to be up to date. I've been spending a long time not being up to date on stuff, so I've been missing out and trying to play catch up, which is really hard once you're really behind.
Once you get behind,
a lot of material.
Possible, yeah.
Exactly. So once you're so I want to stay up to date as much as I can, and this sounds really exciting. It's giving me a reason to look forward to it and want to pick it up on time. Go back to Luke looking for a relic.
Yeah.
Could this? We still haven't gotten a proper story of him searching for Octo yet and the Sacred Jedi texts.
We haven't. So
Is this gonna be it?
Well, I don't know if it's gonna be that. Because
it might lead to that. Yeah, it might not be that.
Because when Han talks about what happened with Luke in The Force Awakens, everything happens with Ben and everything like that, and then he goes looking for the first Jedi Temple. That's when he starts to look for it after that. So I'm wondering if this isn't that compass that he got in Battlefront 2, or if it's
that compass where he and
Kyber Crystal in Last Jedi. And we know, and that kind of plays in with the acolytes of the Beyond, because in the Aftermath trilogy, we know they had Vader's lightsaber, which somehow Vader's lightsaber returned. We still don't know how it survived the Death Star. Of course, if that giant chunk of it could land on Kef Beard, then why couldn't his lightsaber make it too? But I don't know. It's interesting because we don't have a lot of Luke stuff after Return of the Jedi. We have some. The most we have in one novel is Shadows of the Sith, and that was well after the fact of the Battle of Jakku. It was a Luke and Lando novel, which great novel. That was a great novel. Loved it.
Wait, which one is that? What's it called?
Shadow of the Sith.
Shadow of the Sith. Excuse me. Yes. So I
And
have that on Audible. I still haven't read it yet.
it's actually the story of oh, why can I not think of his name? Ochi of Bastoon hunting down Rey and her parents. This is Ochi hunting them down, and Luke and Lando get involved, and they cross paths with Rey, and Luke doesn't even realize it. Like, and so it's pretty. Luke and Lando are trying to help Rey's parents escape with her because Ochi of Bastoon is trying to hunt him down, right, and everything. So it's a really cool book. There's a lot of dark side lore in it. There was even one moment in it that I just absolutely adored with Anakin's Force Ghost with Luke, and it was so good. Apparently Force Ghosts can use lightsabers still. That's a thing. So anyway, that's such a really great, it's a great novel. Go check that one out. It's a little bit of a slow burn, but it pays off in the long run. But really that's all we have for Luke. We have the Legends of Luke Skywalker that are like canon adjacent. They're like legends within, canon. And we know what happened with Luke in Mando and in Book of Boba Fett, but other than that, like there's nothing there with Luke, and so I'm excited.
I really want to see more of Luke. Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm very excited for this whole trilogy. I am. I mean, I know it just literally said that I don't want to see Jedi. I don't want to see as much of that as I want to see what's happening on the ground. So clearly this trilogy is going to be encompassing a lot of different points of view. From a certain point of view is the whole Star Wars thing, right? So maybe this trilogy is going to be just a lot of that. That sounds interesting.
And I think that they have to show Luke as this very powerful character at this point, not because of, the way he was received in Last Jedi and because everybody was upset. They wanted to see Messiah Luke, like not because of that.
No, it's because of the way we saw him in Mando. That's why.
We see I want to see him soar. I want to see him like have it all. I want to see him be powerful. I want to see him build this new Jedi temple.
100%.
I want to see him. And then when everything comes crashing down, I want people to be like, that's why we got the Luke we did in The Last Jedi. Because I still stand by that.
100%.
The higher you fly, the further you fall. And so
yeah.
I want people to see that. I want them to have that. Yeah, Luke, that's the Luke we wanted. And then, so it makes way more sense story-wise, I think. And I'm excited for it. Kind of like how the prequels weren't really well received at first. And then Dave Filoni came out with Clone Wars and George Lucas did Clone Wars and it kind of supplemented it. And we're like, oh, well, actually that makes sense because of that and that. Okay, so I get it. And I think over the course of years, Clone Wars has made the prequels easier to swallow for original trilogy fans. And I think they're going to do the same thing with the sequel films as well. As somebody who was not a fan of the sequel films, I still think I think they're going to supplement it, make it better. So excited for that trilogy of comics that, like I said, it's coming out over the course of like 2 months. By Christmas time this year, we'll have this entire story. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to take this little nugget of a story and just insert it into the timeline and like have it right there and just have it complete. And then we have 2 more comics to talk about. One of them, but one of them I am so excited for. I'm so excited for one of these comic runs. Usef, you're just now getting into High Republic, so I want you to tell me how this sounds to you. As some, and I know you just started phase 1. This is a phase 3 comic, and you kind of know a little bit of the backstory, what's going on here. But they have announced the High Republic Adventures Dispatches from the Occlusion Zone #1. It's going to be a 4-issue run starting on October 9th. And it's described as this: the Marauders, known as the Nihil, have stranded hundreds of worlds in a part of the galaxy known as the Occlusion Zone. With communications blocked and ships unable to enter, Jedi Knights Keeve Trennis and Elzar Mann have turned to centuries-old technology to send messages of hope into the zone. The messages they receive in return from Jedi younglings, Padawans, and Knights, and more, will set the stage for the final battle between the noble Jedi and the nefarious Nihil. As somebody who is
this is it. This is the climax.
We're gearing up. Like as somebody
Here
who is
we go. So I'm at the start, and I'm already looking.
You were at the starting line.
Yes.
And you were looking
and
down
I'm already
the barrel.
looking at the finish line.
You're looking down the barrel. The light is at the end of the tunnel. Does this get you
a lightsaber and a blaster?
I'm not even going to ask you about this comic run because you're so far away from this comic run still making sense.
I know.
But
but now I have to read this comic run. I'm going to have to find somehow.
But
you're going to have to mail that the thing to me. Like, if I can't buy this online and follow it. Is there? Wait, I'm sure there's a website out there where I can buy comics and just read them online. Like
you should be able to get them on Marvel.com. But
Exactly.
as somebody who is just starting the High Republic, right? You have a very unique point of view right now, because you are just now starting the High Republic, and I know you're loving Light of the Jedi. We can talk about it here in a little bit. I know
So far, so good. I'm just about halfway through. So far, so good.
Does
Really
this description of this 4-issue run of comics alone, Star Wars, it's not even Marvel High Republic Adventures. This is Dark Horse. Like this is the younger version of the comics, right? Hearing this alone, is this enough to get you excited to read the entire High Republic run?
Yes, I want to get there. So here's what I have so far: half a book into the High Republic novel series, all of it. I'm just half a book into it. They're so eerie. They are so eerie. The Nihil. It's so interesting that this is a brand new villain for me, and I'm really excited by them. I still don't know how big they are, what they are. They seem pretty darn big. So they're all the way out in the outer rim, in the farthest reaches of the outer rim, and they're so powerful. They have this special ability, without spoiling it for people who haven't read the High Republic. They have this special ability to work with, to how they travel across the galaxy, and what they're doing so far is clearly bossing it. They're doing stuff nobody knows yet. Nobody knows of them in deep detail. They're mysterious to the Jedi. The Jedi are at a certain level. They're at quite a peak of their powers, and they sort of know it. They sort of know, like, they're one with the Force, and they love the Force, and they love being Jedi, and they're very altruistic. But they're, here they are, and this is a new challenge, and they're sort of gearing up to it. And I'm yet to see them face off. So obviously, I'm only half of the way into the first book. So we're still getting to know all the characters. We're still getting to see what the great disaster is and everything. So I am very excited because this villain sounds awesome. And everything you guys have mentioned across our talks on our groups with 1138, you and JG in particular, JG is talking about the characters, and
he's huge on High Republic. Yeah.
Every time Brian, every time I love a character, something's happened to him. Every time I get with this character, oh, you're diverted to someone else. Something happens to this character, something else goes on. So that's exciting to me, because I'm looking at all these heroes. They're supposed to be heroes, and they're supposed to be flag bearers of the Jedi, right?
Yeah.
And they're supposed to be carrying forth the righteousness. And here I'm hearing Elzar. Okay, here we go. So this is a name, that's interesting to me, for me to look out for when I'm reading these books.
Yeah.
Because it's not spoiling anything for me just yet. Not at all. I'm really excited to see how this pans out, because this is a formidable foe. They are marauders. They do have their own sort of internal sense of a creed. And that's clear right from the get-go. And that's very important for the writers to establish this, because they're not a bunch of outlaws. They are actually a faction, and this is a big difference. They're not just gangsters out there. I mean, it depends on your view of the term gangster. I mean, some people could call the mafia gangsters, but the mafia have their own creed.
They're Vikings.
They're Vikings. There you go.
Vikings.
Yes, they got the helmets. They got the drinks. They got the establishment to go, and they even live on their own ships. They don't necessarily live on a planet. It's very Viking, that they're sort of nomadic in that sense. They could just pick up and go.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Love it.
It is the recipe for to play on Nick's analogies before when he was talking about Acolyte. This is a recipe for success, in my opinion. So I can't wait to keep reading and then hit it with that run at the end. Yeah, can't wait.
I am only one book behind on High Republic. I have not read Temptation of the Force yet. And so far,
Is it tempting to read that book?
I don't know. I haven't. It is very tempting to read it. But I'm reading something else right now. It's not Star Wars related. Shame on me. I know. I'm behind, and I'm reading something that's not Star Wars. But I needed to take a break for just a little bit, because everything was just High Republic.
No, we gotta take a break every now and then. Otherwise, it's gonna be too much.
Binge all of it. It's like, oh my gosh, there's so much to take in. because phase 2, the reason I'm kind of behind is phase 2 came out and I didn't read any phase 2 at all until it was all out. And then I just binged phase 2 all chronologically, which, you know,
That
it
was
all
like
goes
eight.
back. It goes
That was
back
like
another
8 or 10 books, right?
Yeah. And so, well, it was like, I think it was like 4 books, a bunch of comics. I mean, it was like 4 or 5 books, a bunch of comics. It was just a lot of stuff.
Oh, I thought it was more. Okay,
Bunch of
good.
short stories, several short stories that kind of tie in with everything. So
The short
I
stories.
sat down and I read all of it chronologically, and it was a really good. I really enjoyed it. And now that I've read Eye of Darkness and Defy the Storm, I'm like, I kind of want to wait for the rest of it to come out and then just sit down and binge all of it, all of phase 3, and just lead right up into it, right? And just, I mean, it's going to be a huge climax in this thing, so I want to like get right up into it. I think that'd be a lot of fun to sit down and do that. At least get caught up, you know, a couple of months before the last book comes out, so that it's ready to go. You know, so I'm ready to go by the time we get there. But I am loving High Republic so far. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it, with it being a whole new era that we've never seen before, and everything. They've done it justice. I've
So
really,
you being as far through the High Republic as you are, and me still at the start, does this deserve a TV show, a movie, a live action, an animated show, a video game? Yeah,
yes, it
deserves
does.
more media, right?
Yes, and you know, not talking about the Acolyte or anything, because that was, to me, that's far enough removed from this portion of the High Republic that it's its own thing.
Absolutely.
So,
No, it's not. It's not the
but
same. No.
something during this time period, absolutely, I'm totally
Fantastic.
for that. And what's cool is they've really touched on High Republic and other stuff, like Jedi Survivor touched on it a lot. There is a huge part of Jedi Survivor. And now we've had some mentions in some other books and comics and stuff here. And there was even a mention of High Republic stuff in The Living Force by John Jackson Miller. There were, you know, that was in there. The Great Hyperspace Disaster was referred to in The Acolyte by Endara. She brought it up while they're sitting around the
Nice.
fire at one point. And so it's a great time period. And there's so much time period there that you could still tell stories, even between phases 2 and 1, because it goes back like 100, 150 years again to phase 2. And so you've got all that space in between there. You've got all the space, you know, between phase 3 and the Acolyte. You can tell stories in, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. But I would love to see them explore this a little bit more. But at the same time, I feel like if they explore it too much, they're shooting themselves in the foot for the Old Republic later on. I feel like they're gonna do so much in High Republic that they're not able to do anything in Old Republic, just because of where they're at with developing the galaxy at this point in High Republic, which happens after Old Republic. And, you know, it's going to make Old Republic weird not having all of these planets that they haven't really connected with yet, because the High Republic is so big on expanding the galaxy and getting out into the unknown regions and dropping communication beacons and mapping out hyperspace routes that if we go back to Old Republic, we're not going to have yet. So I'm kind of curious how they're going to end up doing Old Republic now that they've done High Republic. But they may, I mean, maybe they have a plan for it. I don't know, but I'm excited for it. This comic sounds awesome because of where I'm at on High Republic. I understand what's going on. I understand why they have to use centuries old technology in order to communicate with people on the other side of the occlusion zone and everything like that. And what was wild was one of the things that happened in Eye of Darkness, and it might be a little bit of a spoiler, but I don't think it's that big a one. Like when they first do the first occlusion zone, like, and they've got all these planets, the Jedi think they're getting ready to penetrate it for the first time, and then they fail, and then the occlusion zone expands and takes over hundreds of more planets.
Wow.
And like it's so wide. It seems like they're at a point with High Republic. It's like, how are they going to win this? I feel the same way with High Republic right now as I did after watching Avengers Infinity War going into Endgame, because I was like, how are they going to do this? How are they going to pull this off? How are they going to bring everybody back? You know what I mean? Like, it had that kind of feel like you have no idea, like the odds are stacked against you. Even as the audience, you're like, how are they going to win this? That's where I feel like we're at with High Republic phase 3 right now, is how is this going to go down? Because I'm ready. Bring it on. So this comic run sounds cool. This isn't even in the main Marvel run. This is just a Dark Horse little 4-issue run. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. One more comic to talk about, and then we're going to talk about some books, and then we're going to take a break because we've been going for almost an hour already. This comic is something that I cannot believe that I'm saying I'm excited for, Usef. I cannot believe I'm saying this, because these particular characters have popped up in other issues before. They have had their own run. They've had their own issues before. I wasn't a fan. and that was the Ewoks.
Yeah.
As much as I love Ewoks, I love Ewoks. Don't get me wrong, I love them. They don't, in my opinion, work as a main comic character. I don't think they work because
I don't think they work as a main character, period.
They don't, because all you get is a bunch of yum yum, like that's all it, and a bunch of symbols in the speech bubbles. You just kind of got to look and see what's going on, and so I've never been a big fan of, Tales from Vader's Castle. They've done some Ewok stuff in the past. We've gotten some Ewok stories. We've even had short stories, from 40 years of Star Wars, different points of view, that were Ewok centric, and they were all right. I mean, they weren't great, but they were okay. This, I am so stupidly excited for this comic run, and when I read to you what the synopsis is, you're going to understand why. Okay, and I'll elaborate here in a minute. First off, this comic is coming out on October 9th. It's going to be the start of a mini series. It says, celebrating the 40th anniversary of Caravan of Courage, which I've actually never watched before. I watched like the first part of it, but I couldn't get into it. The Ewoks return in an all-new mini-series set after the events of Return of the Jedi. Here we go. A team of Imperial-led bounty hunters and scavengers arrive on the forest moon of Endor, searching for a secret cache of Imperial weaponry. Are they prepared to face off against the battle-ready Ewoks who took down so many of their ranks? Who is the mysterious new warrior Ewok returning to Bright Tree Village, and what is their connection to Wicket W. Warwick? Forget all about the Wicket stuff. Forget all about the fact that it's about Ewoks, the Caravan of Courage stuff. Completely forget about all of that. The fact that do you remember when Battlefront 2 came out and we got this game mode called Ewok Hunt? You remember that? That was the most fun I've ever had playing a Battlefront game. And
that was incredibly fun.
For those of you who don't know what this is, Ewok Hunt, and I gotta like put a break in there because it sounds like you're saying something else if you just say it really fast. Ewok Hunt is a game mode that it's basically Infection. It drops like 16, 20 people into a game. One person's an Ewok and everybody else is stormtroopers. It's nighttime. The stormtroopers have blasters and flashlights, and they have to survive on Endor until the ship comes to pick them up, to extract them. And the Ewoks had to kill the stormtroopers. And if you got killed by an Ewok, you became an Ewok. And so, as a stormtrooper in the dark with nothing but a flashlight, and there's booby traps all over the Endor map. There's like nets that'll like pull you up and stuff. All of a sudden in the distance, you'll hear, and it's like, oh no. And you hear them like the little chittering of the Ewoks running through the woods. Terrifying. It was the most scared I think I've ever been playing a game. And I've played some scary games. It was such a thrill, right? Ewoks are carnivorous little bastards is what they are. They are meat eaters. They were going to straight cook Han, Chewie, and Luke alive and eat the flesh off of their bones in celebration of finding Leia, who they just happened to have a dress sitting around that was the perfect size to fit Leia. Who did that dress belong to?
Someone they ate.
Exactly. Somebody they were using the heads of their dead carcasses of their victims as battle drums, celebratory battle drums in the final battle. And Lando and Han and everybody's just dancing away. They're just like, go, 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 go. Insane. Like, they are insane little bastards. They're basically the gremlins of Star Wars is what they are. And
fuzzy furry gremlins.
They're vicious little savages is what they are. I'm so excited to watch a group
Ewoks gotta eat.
Battle.
Gotta eat. Don't be hating.
Yeah, I'm so excited to watch these bounty hunters go up against these things, just get picked off one at a time. Because in my brain, all I can picture is that scene in Jurassic Park where they're all walking through the tall grass, and you see the lines of the raptors and just picking them off.
That was amazing. That was nightmares for days.
And like, I just want to see Ewoks do that to these guys so bad.
Up in the trees and in the little fuzzy things with the big sharp spears that bigger than they are, longer than they are.
Am I crazy? Does this sound stupid, or am I like? Or does this actually sound
incredibly fun? It sounds like you're reliving your childhood right now. It is amazing.
My face hurts because I'm smiling so hard right now. This actually sounds like a lot of fun, and I never thought I'd say that about an Ewok comic. So that is set for October 9th.
I'm interested to see the animation for that.
Yeah, the art style for it and how they go about it.
Yeah, the art style for it.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. So
wait, is this a Marvel or is this Dark Horse?
This will be a Marvel. This will be a Marvel comic. Yes.
Nice.
They didn't say how many issues it is. It just says miniseries. So I'm assuming 4, 5, 6 episodes, something like that.
Awesome.
Issues. I mean, bring it on. I'm so ready for that one. I can't wait. Tell me below. Am I nuts? Because I feel like I'm crazy. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because I never thought I'd say I was excited for an Ewok comic, and I'm so excited for this. And let me know, am I crazy? And be gentle. That's all I ask. Let's get into some book news because there's some really cool book news that came out of San Diego Comic-Con too. We'll start with the little throwaway one first, in my opinion, the little throwaway one. There is an untitled young adult novel coming out next year by Tessa Groton, who has written a lot of High Republic stuff in the past. And we don't have a title for this novel yet or anything. Like, we don't have cover art. All we know about this book is that it's releasing on July 29th, 2025. And it's going to be centered around the characters from the Acolyte, Yord and Jeki. That's all we know about it. Tessa Groton, I think, she's growing on me quite a bit as a High Republic author. I like what she's I like the way she's progressed and how she's written some of this stuff. I wasn't a fan of Yord and the Acolyte, but I was of Jeki. So that's what gets me excited for this book. Usef, you are reading High Republic. This book is going to be far enough removed from where you're at now. Is this one you think you could pick up in the middle of what you're reading and enjoy this one? Because I know you liked the Acolyte quite a bit.
I liked it. Yeah, I'm not so certain that I'd pick this up. I want to read it. Sure. I'm not against reading it. I don't think I'll pick this up now. I mean, when it comes out, no, I want to finish phase 1 first from High Republic.
Sure.
I want to finish that like in a row, like finish High Republic and then go back to finish to read a few of the Star Wars books, which I want to read, like Shadows of the Sith, and Darth Plagueis, and a couple of other books maybe. I might include that. It sounds like a book that might be short enough. Yeah. For me to read through really quick. So that sounds helpful. It sounds like, if it's like a smallish story, it's not a short story.
7-hour read. Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's fine. You can just knock that out in a week probably. Cause I have, I can't sit still for more than 2 hours. So it's just my thing. Like if it's a really good book, I'll have like sore legs the day after. Cause I just didn't get up. I just sat down and read this. And I'm gonna be like, oh, yesterday I had an amazing book, but I'm regretting it today. That's just how I was with
Lost Stars. That's how I was with Lost Stars. I read it in 2 sittings. I couldn't stop Lost Stars. It took me. It was a big book.
I read the second half in one shot. I was on holiday with my wife, and we both of us had our books there. And I was so into my book that she wanted to take a break, and she was like, "Well, you're so into your book, I might as well just keep reading mine." Yeah. How intense Lost Stars took me by surprise.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this book, I mean, no, I want to read it because I'm interested to see where Acolyte goes. Sure. Back again, just a little bit about Acolyte. I didn't love it, but I definitely liked it. I liked it a lot. It's set up very nicely. There's enough of a not necessarily a shock factor, but like a twist. There's like twists and turns in the story, and there's a lot in there where you can set yourself up to. Hopefully, we're going to see what role Pelagius is doing, what where the Force takes the Acolyte, and what are they doing? Are they in it just to plot this sort of revenge mission against the Jedi who have misled us, who have taught us nothing but conformity and to rein ourselves in when we can be ourselves, sort of rebellious attitude? Or is it no, it's more like a creed thing going on? I'm really interested to see what's where the Acolyte goes, because so the reason why I'm really following the Acolyte and the reason why it's exciting me is because it's new ground as well. It's because it's High Republic.
Yeah.
New ground gives it so much more possibilities. And I'm pretty sure Lucasfilm knows this as well. Well, I don't mean Lucasfilm in terms of like the film, like the company's still called Lucasfilm. Star Wars in general, because we sort of, we know who the baddies are in the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy. We know what's going on there. and it's kind of, I don't want to say limited, but it feels that way. It feels like, you already have your roster of villains and heroes. You know what I mean? Whereas High Republic is new ground, so you can keep adding and adding and adding, and you can keep, twists and turns in these little stories, and they don't have to make huge waves and ripples throughout the entire story of the of all three trilogies, and then every character that we meet has been affected by these events. No, on the contrary. I mean, technically, the events of Acolyte were kept secret, so secret that most of the Jedi Order, all the Jedi Order, didn't even know that it was happening, basically, because it was just like brushed under a rug until it was too big to contain. So in the last episode, in the finale, we saw, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, our little green friend, just sort of a teeny tiny second or two. I mean, if it's going to get brought to his attention, then stuff's going to go down in the next seasons. I hope to see a lot of Acolyte. I hope to see like 3-4 seasons. So everybody liked Jackie. I was okay with Yord. I was fine with him.
Yeah.
Fine. I know. I mean, he died, but I was fine.
Oh
with
yeah,
him.
he got turned into a boppet, is what he
exactly.
did. Exactly. Twistic.
No, that's what I know. I know. He came off a little bit too strong, so he wasn't everybody's cup of tea. This doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't mean I don't like it. That's fine. He was being a law enforcement officer is what he was. He didn't feel like a Jedi. He felt like a law enforcement officer.
Yeah.
You get my meaning?
Yeah. I loved Jackie. Had she survived that fight with Chimere, she'd have been knighted.
We would have loved that. We would have loved having Jackie survive that.
Instead, she got turned into a 3-hole punch, which is fine. It was a shock factor.
She did her best. She went out hard.
See that coming. Yeah, she went out like a badass. She really did.
Yeah.
But speaking of the Acolyte, the next book we're talking about is 20 years before the Acolyte. And it's following a couple of characters that are from the show. And we'll kind of see what we think about this one. It is set 20 years before the Acolyte. It is called Star Wars The Acolyte Wayseeker. It's written by Justina Ireland. And this is the synopsis that we have for this. Oh, yeah, she's great. Yeah. And she grew on me too. There was a time where anytime her name was attached to something, I was like, oh, but now she's really cut her teeth, I think, on High Republic, and I love it. But the synopsis for Wayseeker reads as this: before the Acolyte, Vernestra Rwoh must find her place in the Jedi Order. Vernestra Rwoh has spent over a decade exploring the Outer Rim as a Wayseeker, answering to no other authority but the Force itself. When a request from the Jedi Council orders her back to Coruscant, Vernestra initially refuses, feeling that her first priority should be to the beings she's already serving. But after Jedi Master Endara arrives to ask for Vernestra's aid in person, Vernestra finds herself pulled back into Coruscant's complicated world of Republic politics and underworld crime. As the two delve further into their investigation and the lines between Jedi and Republic business blur, Vernestra must reconsider what it means to serve for light and life. And this book releases on May 6th, 2025. We're just in time for Star Wars Day next year. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not too awful stoked about this book, to be completely honest. The only thing that I think is saving this book for me is the fact, and I can't believe I'm saying this either, is that it's written by Justina Ireland, who has written Vernestra Rwoh before in the High Republic stuff. As a 15-year-old, Vernestra was the youngest Jedi to ever be knighted at 15. And so Justina Ireland has written a lot, has written some of her. But I was not a fan of the version of Vernestra we got in the Acolyte. I know that like 100 years have passed between when she was a kid to the Acolyte, but I wasn't I don't think the portrayal of her was that great, if I'm being honest. You
felt like it didn't stay true to the character, or just the portrayal?
Yeah, I know characters change over time. I understand that, and I totally get it.
She grew up to be a dick, basically.
Yeah. She
didn't
really
see that
did.
coming. Yeah.
And she never really struck me as the kind of Jedi. She kind of did a little bit. That I'm gonna backtrack on myself here. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. That would hide stuff from the Council. But at the same time, when she made her lightsaber whip, she didn't even tell her master about it because she was afraid of what he would think of an aggressive weapon like that.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of, her portrayal. It seemed to me very clunky is the only word I can really think of to describe it. But I'll read this. I mean, I'm obviously going to read it and check it out. But like I said, it gives me pause because it's mainly about her. But I like the fact that they're still talking about her being a way seeker, which tells me she never rejoins the Order in the High Republic, because we're at a point in the with Phase 3 where she's a way seeker at this point. Even as a young girl, she's a way seeker. She's left the Order. She's doing her own thing. And so to know that she was a way seeker for that long before she came back into the Order, it's kind of cool. But I'm assuming you're right around the same mindset of this one as you were the other one. Finish High Republic first, then get into this one and kind of see.
Well, especially because now I have to see Vernestra as a kid first, because now I have to finish. Yeah.
Right. And maybe, and I'm hoping that maybe this book will bridge that gap between the two versions of Vernestra we've gotten. It's kind of like Saw Gerrera. Like, he was completely different when he, in the animated version of him. Like, he acted, I mean, he was still an extremist, but there's a progression now that you've seen that progression between animation and books and TV shows and then into Rogue One. I'm hoping that Vernestra is the same way. So that one is releasing on May 6th. One more bit of news and then we'll take a break. And this to me is the biggest news that came out of San Diego Comic-Con. I'm so excited for this. I didn't even know this got announced until JG dropped it into our chat. And as soon as I saw it, I screamed. Yes, this is so great. They have announced not one, not two, but 3 new books. They're going to make up a trilogy called Reign of the Empire. The first book is called The Mask of Fear, and it's by Alexander Freed. And this is going to take place between episodes 3 and 4. The entire trilogy is going to take place during this time period. It's the rise of the empire, that's the political side of it, the politics and everything like that. It's been described as a spy drama, as a political thriller. And I'm so excited for this. The first book is set to take place in the first year of the Empire's reign. And the synopsis reads as follows. Before the rebellion, the Empire reigned. With one speech and thunderous applause, Chancellor Palpatine brought the era of the Republic crashing down. In its place rose the Galactic Empire. Across the galaxy, people rejoiced and celebrated the end to war and the promises of tomorrow. But that tomorrow was a lie. Instead, the galaxy became twisted by the cruelty and fear of the Emperor's rule. During that terrifying first year of tyranny, Mon Mothma, Saw Gerrera, and Bail Organa faced the encroaching darkness. One day, they will be 3 architects of the Rebel Alliance. But first, each must find purpose and direction in a changing galaxy while harboring their own secrets, fears, and hopes for a future that may never come unless they act. Usef, so ready for this book to come out yesterday. I'm so excited for this book. It's set for release on February 25th, so it's 6 months away still. This is awesome to me. Like, I'm in the camp that loved Andor. I loved the Andor series. I thought it was great. It was a slow burn. It was definitely a slow burn. And I rewatched it recently when I was homesick from work for like 4 or 5 days. I rewatched the entire first season and got a refresher on it and reminded myself why I loved it so much. And as great as that entire series is, all the Andor stuff, of him, in the prison, everything. Some of the best parts of that series were when we cut to Mon Mothma and what she was dealing with on Coruscant. And she framed her own husband for gambling to write off the money she was putting aside for the Rebel Alliance. Like, to me, that was some of the most interesting stuff. And to know that we're getting a trilogy of novels on that excites me, man. What do you think of this? This sounds like an amazing set of books.
I completely agree with you that it's incredibly exciting, especially for me. This is my favorite period of Star Wars. And actually saying it out loud is reaffirming it. It is definitely my favorite period in Star Wars, the growing empire.
Yeah.
But, Anakin turning into Vader. But I'm going to say something here, which I've been thinking about. I didn't want to be depressing up on the group and say this.
Oh, no.
I don't want these to be novels. I really want them to be a show or a movie or a game. I really, 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 really times 100 wanted this to be a show, wanted this to be media, wanted this to, you know what I mean? I'm very excited to read it. And this is now, I didn't pay attention to the release date. So now that you told me it's in Feb.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically I have until February to finish High Republic because I can't.
You'll never do it.
You'll never make it. Do it.
So
Wait,
much.
so this is when the first. So how many novels is this? It's going to be a trilogy as well.
3. This is going to be a trilogy. Yes.
So when the first one comes out mid-Feb, end of 22nd of Feb, 23rd of Feb, something like that. When does the second one come out? Is that
so? The second book is going to be written by Rebecca Roanhorse, who did Resistance Reborn, which is like the prequel novel to Episode 9. Really good book.
Oh, they're not doing the same. So the trilogy is going to be different writers as well.
3 different authors. Yes.
No, I'm less excited now.
Okay. Oh no, the second book is coming out spring of 2026, and the third book is coming out in spring of 2027. So they're going to be a year apart.
Okay. Oh,
they're going to be a year apart.
Coming out in the same year, so I was going to be interrupted. Yeah, never mind.
And the first one is being written by Alexander Freed. The only reason that I have any pause about that book at all is because of that. And the only reason I have anything against Alexander Freed at all is because of the Alphabet Squadron trilogy. I couldn't get into Alphabet Squadron. I wasn't a fan and I know I'm in the majority. I know there's people that they've commented on the videos before. How dare you not like the Alphabet Squadron? It was so good. It wasn't for me. I'm glad you guys liked it. I got halfway through the second book and I was like, oh my God, is this done yet? And then I realized I had another book I still had to read in this trilogy. 6 months later, I'm like, geez, we got to do another one of these. And I just had to slog through them. I had to. But he did an amazing novelization for Rogue One. And so I think, and I really like the first Battlefront novel. So I think he's going to do fine on this one. Maybe it was just the topic of Alphabet Squadron that I just wasn't a huge fan of. I don't think it's his fault. But all I can say is don't come up with any names, Mr. Freed, that's going to take me out of the story. Because in Alphabet Squadron, that was the biggest thing. He'd come up with all these weird names that you just had, and there was no shortened version of them. They were long names, and you had to sit and sound them out the whole time. At least I had to.
Now that you say this, I remember that novel ranking that you sort of did, and you talked about this a lot.
It's at the bottom for me now. I am such an unfan of Alphabet Squadron. You guys know how I feel about Heir to the Jedi. That whole trilogy dethroned Heir to the Jedi. It's at the bottom of my list. Heir to the Jedi is now the 4th novel from the bottom, and the whole bottom 3 are Alphabet Squadron. That's just me. You guys might read it and love it, but I wasn't a huge fan of them at all. Maybe it was I don't know. And I'm wanting to reread.
Reign of the Empire is going to focus on the politicians and the spies and everything. So the start of people realizing
of the Rebel Alliance.
What the hell is going on here? This is not okay. We need to get to grips with what we're actually seeing. This is basically the vibe, right?
Yes.
So it's not going to focus a lot on Sidious and Vader. It's just going to focus on the politics and the.
Think so. I think it's going to be from their.
There will probably be an interaction with them somehow.
Sure.
Maybe not in the first book, but I'm just speculating. Obviously.
Well, Alexander Freed was doing an interview about the book afterwards, and he was quoted saying this, and this kind of put my mind at ease a little bit with him. So I'm tell me what you think of his comments here. He says, I'm enormously excited to be a part of this project and explore an era of Star Wars, especially rich with the nuanced stories of quote unquote ordinary citizens, people living inside the machinery of the Empire, still figuring out what's happened to their government and in violent disagreement over ideas of democracy, resistance, revolution, and complicity. It's a chance to write a political thriller and spy drama and sweeping historical epic all at once, as well as spotlight Mon Mothma, a character I've been passionate about for ages. I can only hope the end result does justice to the grand to the grand themes of the prequel films and manages a similar blend of timelessness and relevance. I'm excited for it.
Sounds cool.
This is my number one anticipated novel that I know about right now. That's the
it sounds extremely.
This is my most anticipated. I don't care what I'm doing.
Sounds extremely cool. Sounds extremely cool. I'm very excited for it. I just wish it was media. I want to see this the same way you just said that you love Andor. Although, I mean, obviously they can't. Okay, so they can't do Andor and then backtrack a few years before that and do this. Well, I mean, I suppose it's around the same period. Of course it is, but I mean, it's much earlier than Andor, though, isn't it?
Well, they said the first book is the first year after
Of the
after
Empire.
the Empire, and then the second and third books are going to jump ahead several years each time to main events that kind of took place for the rise of the Rebel Alliance. So
Okay.
one of them might take place during Andor or during Rebels or something along those lines. So there's a lot there that we could end up doing with it, and I'm here, baby. I am here for this trilogy. I'm
Where does Admiral Akbar get inserted into the Rebel Alliance? When? Not where. Okay.
I'd have to go back and look. I've slept since then. I would have to go back and look.
I like that phrase.
All the way back. I mean, all the way back into the Clone Wars. He was there during
He's
the Clone Wars.
probably my favorite Rebel commander. He's just
he's great. So I'm excited for this trilogy. This to me is the biggest news that came out of San Diego Comic-Con. I'm so excited for this. Like I said, I'm probably going to take a day off work and just sit and read this book in one sitting. I can't wait. I'm over the moon for this one. So, like I said, that comes out on February 25th of 2025. So, that does it for news. Usef, let's take a quick break before we get into mailbag questions, and we'll be back in just a few minutes, guys.
The fearsome Nile continued to spread chaos inside the Occlusion Zone, aided by mysterious creatures called the Nameless that feed on the Force itself. When the people of an embattled world plead for help with the Nihil threat, a team of both Republic Defense Coalition members and Jedi, including Ram Jamorum, is sent to their aid. The team soon discovers that their ship contains 4 stowaways, Jedi younglings Kildo, Tep-Tep, and Jamil, and Zenny Greylark, a senator's daughter determined to find her sister. When a distress call comes in from a nearby planet, Jedi Master Adi Lee Caro agrees to take stowaways to investigate. There they will encounter a young Hutt on a mission, a stranger with mysterious motives, and the creatures they fear the most. Available wherever books are sold on August 27th.
It's been over a year since the fall of the Starlight Beacon space station, and both heroes and villains alike must face the consequences of their decisions. When Jedi Knight Wreath and Padawan Amado Azazo are sent on a mission to test their theories about the Nameless, they'll come face to face with the terrifying creatures once thought to be myth, and learn the true meaning of fear. Fear that fallen Jedi Aslan Rel advised them to embrace if they have any hope of defeating the monsters. Available wherever books are sold on September 24th.
This is John Jackson Miller, and you're listening to the Star Wars Canon Podcast. May the Force be with you.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We are going to be getting into some mailbag questions. How do you get a question on the show? You simply email it to us at starwarscanonpodcast@gmail.com. We'll go through each week and peck out a few, and I'll give you some tips on how to get your question on the show. Granted, there's not a lot of questions coming in, but with an example of like this week, some of the questions we got had a lot to do with the news we were talking about anyway, and so we were going to talk about them anyway. I didn't really want to pick those mailbag questions, but these two particular questions didn't really have anything at all to do with what we had already planned to talk about, so we decided to pick these, and they're two really great questions. And so we're going to get into these real quick, and we're going to buzz through these two, and then we're going to call it a night. So, Usef, are you ready?
Absolutely. I haven't actually heard these questions before. Normally, you send in the questions in advance. I have a few minutes to think about them. So hit me.
All right, here we go. We're going in blind where you are. We're going in blind. The first question this week comes from, by the way, I said earlier, I'm no good with names. You guys know this. I know this. Usef, you know this. I'm no good with names. Please don't take it personally if I get your name wrong. I'm truly sorry. I'm just ignorant when it comes to names. So the first question this week comes from David Reese. And David writes in and says, "Hello there, Brian and crew. My name's David, and I've been listening to your show since 2020. I found your show while I was quarantined during the height of COVID. I began reading the Canon novels because of you and have enjoyed them for the most part. I love your show and the discussions you bring to the table, and I'm really glad you're back." Thanks for the kind words, David. We definitely appreciate that. He goes on to say, "How did Obi-Wan not sense that Anakin was still alive before the Kenobi series? We see the scene where Reva tells Obi-Wan that Anakin lives. For a Jedi as powerful as Obi-Wan, you would think he would have had some kind of clue that Vader was still alive in the Empire. What are your thoughts on this? Keep doing what you're doing. Thanks for the question, David. I chalk it up simply as we know Obi-Wan had some serious PTSD after all of that. He and correct me
He
if I'm
thought
wrong.
he thought he killed his effing brother, man.
He thought he left him for dead. That's exactly what he thought.
And he felt like Anakin was his brother, and Obi-Wan, to a very large extent, extremely limited himself with the Force.
Yeah.
I mean, he almost cut himself off completely. I think he cut himself off completely because he didn't want anybody to sense that he was one with the Force or felt with the Force. And we know this from those few episodes in Rebels when Darth Maul meets him on Tatooine. We know this from obviously the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. That's more important actually than Darth Maul meeting. Yeah, he cut himself off from the Force. It's just unfortunately it's as simple as that. There's no elaborate answer there. By the way, thanks David for the question. Brian, a little bit more credit to you here before we jump back to you. Sure. You are also the reason that I am reading Canon novels. When I found your podcast slightly before COVID, when we started messaging and I started messaging you, started messaging me back, and eventually here I am talking to you. And oh my God, I lost track of how many episodes I've done with you. Shame on me.
We got to go back and look. We got to go back and see.
I have to.
When you started. We really could. Yeah, I think you could go deeper than just the fact that he cut himself off from the Force.
Oh yeah.
I think so. I think it boils down to he thought he left Anakin for dead.
So would have Anakin's excuse me, would have Anakin's Force signature changed?
I think so, because one of the things I was going to bring up was I've always seen Anakin and Vader as two different people. Yeah, and because and they were both in there, and I think the Acolyte even kind of reinforced that a little bit. And since Osha and May were basically the same person, just two sides of the same coin,
right?
I think Anakin was the same way, just in one body. I think that was two separate. Vader and Anakin were two completely different people. But if you look at the Ahsoka novel, there was a point in that book where she, during the first year after Revenge of the Sith, she reached out in the Force to try to find Obi-Wan or Anakin.
Yeah.
You couldn't find either of them. Couldn't feel either of them.
And that what reinforces this is Ahsoka in Rebels as well. When she confronts Vader and she's like, well, who the F is this? Like, you're not Anakin's like, oh, crap.
And then when she gets the inkling of it, she's like, what?
She's like mind blown, effed, like, whoa. Yeah.
And the other thing is, think about how big the galaxy is. Yeah. I'm going to use this as an example. The Jedi, right? I mean, we thought the Jedi were this huge portion of the galaxy, right? Of the Republic and everything. Not everybody in the galaxy even believed the Jedi were real because they'd never seen one before. When you say there's 10,000 Jedi, that's great. But in a galaxy of trillions and trillions of people, 10,000 Jedi are nothing. How many times do you read in these books where a Jedi comes up and they're like, you're a Jedi? Jedi are real? I never thought that you guys were real, and so that happens a lot. And so with Vader, some of the stuff we got in like Dark Legends and stuff, Vader was a boogeyman that parents told their kids about before they went to bed, and not everybody ever saw Vader. Not everybody knew about Vader. He was an urban myth, basically. It's not like the Emperor was like putting out on the holonet holograms of him like old and decrepit, right? And this is Lord Vader. Like he wasn't doing that, Anytime they put the Emperor in a holonet, he was a hologram of himself before he was disfigured.
Exactly. And Vader and his commanders, even Tarkin, they weren't really like Captain America being paraded around on national television or intergalactic television.
Exactly. There were people that knew about him, but it was because they had connections. Not everybody in the galaxy knew about him. Yeah. And so when you look at Tatooine, where Obi-Wan was, the Empire didn't even come to Tatooine until the droids did in A New Hope with the Death Star plans. And so Obi-Wan, with the PTSD that he had, we knew that from the nightmares he was having, from the PTSD he was having to disconnecting himself from the Force and wanting to completely forget everything that could happen as best as he could. I don't see him tuning in daily on the news net, you know what I mean? Like on the HoloNet, trying to see what's going on in the Empire. You know what I mean? Like he's there for a purpose, and that is to like cut meat out of a giant sand, thing and watch over Luke. Like that's literally what he was doing. So I don't think he wouldn't have known that Anakin was still alive. And the look on his face when Rivas brought that up in the Kenobi series, there was two moments in the Kenobi series I wanted. And that was him finding out Anakin was still alive, because that was going to be a huge emotional moment, especially considering everything he went through, right? and I wanted
Him
Vader
saying hello there.
yeah, hello there. That was and but the other thing I wanted was a scene where Anakin said to Obi-Wan, "Look at what you turned me into. This is all your fault."
Yes,
And we got
this
that.
is
We got that
yes,
scene where Obi-Wan is like, "What have you
and it
become?"
was so rageful.
I
Like that sentence was
Yeah,
so
what you
rageful
made
as
me.
well.
Like, loved it.
Like they just turned the volume up in Vader's helmet when he said that.
What you
Oh my
made
god,
me. Yeah, you could
you
hear, you
could.
could feel the rage behind
It
it.
was seething.
It was
Oh my
personal. Yeah,
god, that was so personal.
and
Oh,
so,
wonderful.
and I don't blame Obi-Wan for cutting himself off from the Force. What did the Force
No,
ever
no,
do
no,
for
no, no,
Obi-Wan?
not yeah.
Nothing. No, the Force never did a thing for Obi-Wan. Never did. And yet somehow he still remained true to his character when he did come back. You know what I mean? And so I there it makes perfect sense that he didn't know Anakin was still alive. That he completely it's like what George Lucas said, right? When he sold Lucasfilm to Disney, he's like, it's like breaking up with an old girlfriend. You don't go driving by their house, see how they're doing, you don't look them up, you cut ties. That's what Obi-Wan did. It was just he wanted to even when Bail Organa showed up in person saying Leia, the other twin, has been captured, Obi-Wan said, "Not my problem. I don't want anything to do with it. Leave me alone." You know what I'm saying? Like, and then he got goaded into it. But like, he even at that point, he was like, "No, I don't want anything to do with it." Until Baylor like gave him, "You're going to do this for me. You owe me." You know what I mean? And so, Obi-Wan wanted nothing to do with the galaxy. So to me, when I think of Obi-Wan finding out Anakin is still alive, it makes perfect sense to me. I would almost go as far as to say he didn't even believe that was Anakin until that exact moment when he cuts the helmet. And you see that Anakin side kind of come through for a little bit there at the end of the series. I think that was when it really struck him that was Anakin. I think he knew, but I think that was the moment that it really did sink in that Anakin was inside there. So thanks for the question, David. I hope that answers your question. Usef, is there anything you think I missed or anything you want to add to it?
No. It was just intense. I mean, there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot of things. So we don't want to go on ranting too much about this, but it's such a pivotal moment as well because so Obi-Wan is such a fantastic
I love
character.
Obi-Wan. Yeah,
absolutely love Obi-Wan. I don't think there's a single Star Wars fan who doesn't love Obi-Wan Kenobi as a character. Period.
Every
I'm
iteration.
not talking about Ewan McGregor. I'm talking about Obi-Wan. Every iteration,
Yeah,
animated, live action in the books. When he was younger, like in the book Master and Apprentice.
When he was old Ben, when he was the Force Ghost,
Ben.
all of it. Obi-Wan was just awesome across the board. Very well written.
Exactly.
And he went through so much. I can't believe that he went through everything that he did and still stayed true to the light. You know what I mean? Like, he watched his master die to his Lord. He watched Anakin fall to the dark side. He watched the Republic fall. He lost Satine in Clone Wars. Like everything that he went through, and he still stayed true.
Losing Qui-Gon at that age and becoming a Jedi Knight and insisting to take Anakin on and then telling Yoda, I'm going to do this. Even if it's without the support of Jedi Council, and then doing everything going through everything that you just mentioned and more and all of those. So
great.
So good.
So like I said, I hope it answers your question, David. What do you guys think? Do you think we're off our rockers? Do you think there's more to it? Do you think it's, way simpler than what we've made it? Let us know. Sound off. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. And the second question for this week comes from Jonathan Rickard. And Jonathan writes in and says, "Hey, Star Wars Canon Podcast crew, I watched your episode last week," which now is like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Sorry about that. I watched your episode from last week, and I like your explanation for why Luke was the way he was in the sequel trilogy and how it's not actually Rian Johnson's fault, even though he's the one all the hate got thrown at. I also liked your explanation for Ki-Adi-Mundi being present in the Acolyte, not breaking canon. Very deep critical thinking, looking back at what we've had before and applying it to these characters. Very insightful. Thanks for the kind words. We do appreciate it. He goes on to say, my question is this. I saw a theory, and Usef, you're going to love this. I saw a theory recently saying that Anakin's emotions for Padme influenced her own emotions through the Force, making her fall in love with him. I'm not sure I'd believe it, but what do you think? Is this a possibility? Thank you for taking my question, and I look forward to more content from you. May the Force be with you. Thanks for the question, Jonathan. It's a solid point. I'm not saying I buy into this theory, but I am going to say that there's quite a bit to back it up. That if they were to come out and say, yeah, that's what was happening, they could make it make sense. Think about
I'm very apprehensive right now because this kind of
let me convince you. And I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm not saying I believe this. I'm not saying that this is canon. I'm not saying that this is what
let's run through this. Okay.
But I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second for Jonathan, all right? Or for whoever came up with this theory, I should say. Look at Padme as a character first, okay? Padme in episode 1 was a strong, and this is going to sound so cliche, she was a strong, independent female leader, right? Who cared about nothing but her people, and to make sure that what was happening on her planet got resolved. The people responsible were brought to justice. If she had to get her own hands dirty, she did it.
Very righteous, very ethical.
Very righteous, very, very loyal to her people, brave, very courageous. And she that was her purpose, right? She showed that she cared for Anakin, but not at the expense of her people on her planet, right? So in episode 1, we see her go back to Naboo, get her hands dirty, literally get into the middle of the battle, shooting people in her own palace, droids in her own palace, to resolve what was going on, right? And you don't see a whole lot of like Anakin and Padme love stuff in that episode, right? She's only around him for like 3 days, two or 3 days, right? And then didn't see him for 10 years, okay? For that 10 years, Padme didn't think about Anakin a whole lot. There were some times where she thought about, you know, the situation that she had gone through with the slavery and on Tatooine, finding out that slavery was still a thing in the galaxy. You know, she found that out in episode 1, to the point where she sends Sabe to try to fight that whole system on Tatooine to free slaves and everything. But she didn't really focus on Anakin a whole lot as a person. Anakin, on the other hand, in episode 2, he says, you know, I haven't seen her in 10 years. I have thought about her every day since we parted. I've thought about her every day. For 10 years, he thought about her. And then as soon as they're brought back together, the first thing out of her mouth is, you'll always be that little boy I knew on Tatooine. There was no like romantic thing there at all, right?
Absolutely.
And this is still the same strong female character, right? This is the same strong, brave, loyal, Betty Badass warrior, right? Just on a different battlefield now in the Senate instead of, you know, as queen. She's with Anakin a total of like 3 days. 3 days that she is with I'll say a week. I'll give her the benefit of a doubt. And I'll say a week.
And boom, they're kissing.
Boom. I am truly, deeply in love with you. A week. It was a week, Usef. Like, and that's I think it was less than that, but I'm just being generous. It was a week. And think about what happened during that week. Think about it for a second, right? They went to Naboo to go into hiding. She chastised him as soon as they got to Naboo when he tried to cut in. She's like, excuse me, and just like keeps talking, right? And so like puts him in his place. She's like, oh, he's just a Padawan learner. He's nothing. Like, you know, like that's what she basically said. And then out of nowhere, they have this weird, awkward kiss because he's like stroking her arm. Like, where did that come from? And then like Anakin, when he finally, like, there's a little bit of flirting there, but when Anakin finally pours his heart and soul out to this woman, right? He bears it all. She's like, she thinks about it for a second, right? And then she's like, no, we can't do this. It'd be a lie. I couldn't live like that. Could you live like that? And then he goes and murders an entire tribe of sand people. The men, the women, and the children, and tells her about it. And that's not a red flag? That's not a red flag? Are you serious? He just wiped out an entire tribe of indigenous people. Yeah.
Indigenous people.
Out of pure anger. And you still 3 days later tell him I am truly deeply in love with you? Are you serious? Like everything that he went through and like telling her your presence is soothing, like all this weird stuff that he said to her, just being, and he even made the comment, just being around her again is intoxicating. Maybe it was the same way for her. Maybe being around Anakin again and his emotions was leading. Am I crazy? Because then wait, before you answer, because then you go to episode 3, right? Then you fast forward to episode 3. And Padme, and I still believe this, got turned into a plot device for episode 3. That's all she was. She wasn't Betty Badass anymore. She gave birth to twins. That's badass. But what I'm saying is she wasn't like a warrior on the battlefield anymore. She was head over heels in love. The whole, so love has blinded you kind of thing. You know what I mean? And like, even when Anakin's like, the Jedi have turned on the Chancellor, and she's like, well, what are you going to do? Like, she bought it hook, line, and sinker. Like, you're the Jedi, right? Who you have fought beside for the entire Clone Wars. The Jedi whom you have rescued, who have rescued you countless times, who you have fought for on that side. Anakin walks up and says, the Jedi turned on the Republic. Oh, what are you going to do? Like, you wouldn't just, there's no denial there at all. Like nothing. And at that point, Anakin is like so like emotionally in the Force at that point that she would just be feeding off of that subconsciously. Am I crazy, Usef? Am I nuts? Is there something to this? Because then I'll take it one more step before you answer. I'll take it one more step.
I'm with you. No, okay.
Once the whole thing happens with Anakin on Mustafar, and they get separated, and Anakin has been quote unquote left for dead, and Obi-Wan gets on the ship, she asks, is he all right? Yeah. No, I mean, like, am I crazy? Am I nuts? Is there something to it? Whenever Padme was around Anakin, she was just, is there something to it?
So here's a lot of what I'm going to say as well is the other side of this.
Yeah.
Her perspective being, you're absolutely right about, the difference of her character when we see her when she's in episode 1. We can't forget that Naboo have this incredibly weird system of having their queens and their leaders being essentially adolescent children, right? Or adolescents, right?
Yeah.
So she's super young. She's never been in love. She's never had the life experience of full-on, normal society, going to college, whatever. She hasn't had all of that. She's never had a fling. She's never had one-night stand. She's never done any of that. So she's what she's essentially had is this kid who she's seen go through this crap, become something outstanding from nothing to not just somebody, but on the route to becoming someone who she knows everybody reveres and is not reveres yet. Is talking about this potential within him, that he's going to be something potentially the effing chosen one. Like, wow, everybody looks to you to being something huge for the future. You're clearly an impressive character. These few moments, that week you're talking about, she gets infatuated with him. You're right, completely. Hard, yeah. I won't lie in saying that. So initially, when I heard this this theory, as soon as you said it, a big part of human nature is, for you as a person, falling in love with someone or something is the love that you're getting from that person or thing. A lot of the reason why people just love puppies is because they just love you so much. They just want to play. And you in turn love them, and your dog becomes your everything because you're their everything. So in the same way, when you fall in love with someone, not trying to be too personal here, but from personal experience with my wife, when you get a relationship, and hopefully everybody gets this feeling, when you're loved by someone, automatically what you feel as love is multiplied. So her getting this unbelievable, copious amounts of affection from this person who she respects and is there to protect her and is skilled and comes from an environment which she really respects because, here she respects him on two different fronts here. One of them is like, so he's a Jedi. He's going to be he's automatically a different kind of category of person because they're just different all over the galaxy. They're extremely unique, right? And then he's also this kid who grew up a slave. He knows what it's like to be oppressed, and he's so righteous and he wants to fix the galaxy, which plays on her heartstrings. She's, he has the idea. She's very idealistic in episode 2 as well. Not in a bad way, in an aspiring politician way. She was a queen and she wants to make sure that everyone in the galaxy feels better off. And now she sees someone who's going to be that kind of person who wears that cape of righteousness and carry it into battle, risking his life for it, because that's what Jedi did, and that's what they ended up doing throughout the entire Clone Wars, especially Anakin, right? You know, it doesn't sound, everything you're saying, it doesn't sound crazy, but what I'm saying is it sounds more and more like there are reasons for her to fall in love with this character as well. So if you're gonna say, or anyone really, I don't mean you, Brian, but like if anybody's gonna say the cause of her falling in love with him so quickly and so enormously, so much love and at so much time and such short amount of time, was because Anakin fell in love with her and he poured all of his passion, because Anakin has that. So Anakin has that thing, right, where he's there's a reason why they were scared of him being a Jedi. This is exactly why. He's far too emotional. He's far too emotional. He's scared of losing what he loves, and he goes and he slaughters sand people like animals. And the reason why actually she doesn't get too shocked is because I'll answer this. I'll answer you. I'll answer this point you mentioned, Brian, because these sand people are oppressors. They kidnapped a woman just to either sell her off or keep her as a slave or torture her. So in a part of her mind, I guess they kind of deserved it too. They got what's coming to them, and it might as well have happened to the son of the person they kidnapped, who himself was a slave. This is, to a certain level, justice. It's chaotic justice. It's not okay. She obviously would want a rule of law and everything. But yeah, if I was thinking of Padme and what she would have thought in that situation, sure, it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. But she would also have figured, well, what else can you do? You're going in there to save your mother. I can't even begin to fathom the feelings you're going through. Um, there's a lot to think about here. Also, if we're gonna say that the Force, so Anakin used the Force to manipulate her, maybe not necessarily intentionally, not doing
I don't
Jedi
think it's
mind tricks,
intentional. Yeah,
but he poured so much passion that he inadvertently did that. That he inadvertently is like throwing his passion at her,
basically.
and
Yeah,
because he's constantly living the Force anyway, he's exuding it constantly. That basically it affected her, and that she became attracted to that, and it became sort of like, yes, love me now, love me more, love me, give me this, give me that, and that's basically what happened. I could, yeah,
it's
ultimately
so
that
outside
I
of her
actually
character, though. It's like
I
so outside
agree.
of everything that
I
she had
agree, but
exuded
she's
about.
young. She's young. I wouldn't say she's naive, but she's young. She's
Yeah, no,
inexperienced.
yeah.
She's young. She's inexperienced, especially on the personal side.
Mm-hmm.
So for her to become infatuated because someone got super intensely infatuated with her, and he has all this stuff going for him, and he's a Jedi,
But
you
the
know.
thing is, too, like she's wise enough to run an entire planet, but she's not wise enough to know the
Well,
difference
I mean, the
between
whole
love and
point. How is
infatuation.
she wise enough to run it? I mean, this whole
She
Naboo
got
system is
elected
cuckoo
to it.
anyway. How
She
are
got
you? Yeah.
elected to it.
Well, I mean, it was between her and another 14-year-old
And
girl
they
as
tried
well. It
to
was just
amend their
like, yeah.
constitution to give her a third term. You find that out
Well,
in
I mean,
episode
yes.
2.
So all of the candidates are like what 14-year-old girls, right?
Yeah.
Aren't they? Or
But still,
18?
yeah, but like you said,
Or
that was
18-year-old
normal
or
for them.
something.
The Sand People thing, the Sand People, like in Mandalorian, right? They're like, there's a scene where Mando is just like doing sign language to the Sand People, and like the only thing I could think of is, they're talking about the Sand People like doing all this stuff to what's going on Tatooine, and he's like, have you tried talking to them? They're fine, they're just getting along great. And then Anakin's just like, nope. Like, it's just, I get being mad, but like, to me, that's a red flag. Like, if I was dating a girl, even if I was dating a girl, even if we weren't like, if we were beyond the point where Anakin and Padme were,
And you
right?
just straight up went to the diner that had a
No,
kid
if
who yelled at your kid, and you just straight up went there and tore them to
my
shreds.
if my girlfriend like gets into a bar brawl because her dad got punched in the face and she breaks a bottle and just slices the throat of every single person in the bar, I'm gonna be like, we need to reevaluate this relationship because I'm not living with crazy. I'm just saying that's a
Brian, you were born in the
giant
80s. You are
red.
mature. Padme was born in the 90s. She's not mature.
That is a giant red flag. He murdered an entire tribe. He Roanoke them. I went there. Like, he just completely annihilated and then left. He just left him laying around. That because Book of Boba Fett, the same thing happened to him. Like, his tribe got wiped out. And what did he do?
Completely wiped out.
He went and wiped them out. Like, and so
You
I
just
don't know.
went full.
I don't know.
I
just,
mean, listen.
yeah,
The good news is that we
so
don't
much
have
to
to
it.
give a definitive answer.
No,
But I mean, I'll be honest. There is merit to it,
there's
definitely.
enough to back it up to make you go,
Because
like there's
I
no.
love I love Anakin so much. I think that for a huge amount of time, the entire story of Star Wars for me revolved around Anakin's fall from grace, his fall to the dark side. And his fall to the dark side came essentially because Senator Palpatine was playing on this immense amount of power Anakin is carrying, and
Fear,
he
yeah.
just diverted this power to worry. So there's I mean, I'm not sure if people are big on psychology, people listening to the podcast right now, watching us. There's a I'll try to search it up, and maybe Brian can add it into the comments later, just so I don't interrupt us in the conversation now. There's a certain guide to the different personality types there are in the world, humans. So there's like around 20,
Mhm.
and each of these, like, I can't remember the exact number now, but it's around 20. And I figured out which category I sort of am. I'm not ashamed to say that I go to therapy and stuff. I think everybody should go to therapy every now and then for themselves, should figure out whatever the hell they're going through. But the thing is that you have different characters, different people think of things. You evaluate your life and your decisions based on different feelings. People that think with their head, people that think with their heart, people that think with their gut. And and people to think with their body and with their gut, that they intrinsically feel like they're challenged with a certain decision, or with their head, they're very rational, ultra rational. They try to eliminate emotion. Some people are ultra emotional. To me, this is Anakin, right? Ultra emotional. This is what he thinks about when he's making decisions. And you see this throughout the entire Clone Wars series. One of the main reasons Clone Wars got boring for me for a long time, Brian knows this, but the reason why I stuck with it was not to stay up to date with the podcast, even though that's definitely what I wanted to do, but not just because I was extremely behind having not seen Clone Wars. It was because I loved Anakin and Obi-Wan so much. I want to see where they take this. I want to see what happens to them. And I was not disappointed. Whenever there was an episode that Anakin and Obi-Wan were not in there, I was like, oh, okay, I don't have to watch this. And then I go back and watch it like 3 times just to make sure that I focus on it. Whenever I saw Anakin, he's not thinking with his head. The man just rushes straight in because he knows he's got a master. He knows he's got a Jedi Order. He knows he's got people there to make sure that he's doing tactics in a certain way. He's doing battles. He's doing this, doing that. But he protects the clones like they're his comrades, even though clones are never treated like that. He did this out of emotion. He did this because he never had a sense of brotherhood. Other Jedi won't, or rather, Anakin was yearning for a sense of brotherhood, a sense of belonging, that camaraderie that he got there, and that he was at the center of the leadership of that camaraderie. That was amazing for him. I think it's what we all dream of, or not, maybe not all of us, certainly something that I would dream of. I certainly fantasize about being within those roles, of being within a leadership role in camaraderie. Brian was in the army. I'm sure there's that sort of sense of belonging and camaraderie and leadership roles and everything. And Nick can definitely testify to this, how he was talking to me privately a few months back just about, yeah, what it means to be a leader within this group of very special individuals that are giving their life for their country. So if Anakin is a person capable of such huge emotion, and he's also so damn strong with the Force, yeah, I believe that some of that would rub off on Padme. I believe that this person who is incredibly emotional, who is incredibly powerful with the Force, without even feeling it, is just showing. I mean, on the other hand, if that somebody else who's a Force user has got to read into that, and it's not just going to be Obi-Wan trying to look at those sneaky little looks they sneak each other, or that they sneak off together, or they do this. You know what I mean? It's got to be a Force reading somewhere. But yeah, obviously,
Not
maybe
necessarily though,
that's just because that's how the show was written.
because think about Palpatine sat across the desk from the High Jedi Council. How many times?
Yeah, Palpatine saw everything, and they saw
They
nothing.
never realized it, and
And
so
Palpatine knew everything about him and Padme,
yeah.
and he knew everything that was there, and he.
let's
Yeah, and we all. I mean, it's my theory as well that Palpatine manipulated Anakin into having these nightmares about Padme in the first place. It wasn't a premonition from Anakin. I think it was. I think it was Palpatine manipulating Anakin. Anyway, but yes. So without droning too long about this, I got really passionate all of a sudden. But the thing is that yeah, Anakin's feelings can play into Padme's emotions, not going to disregard that theory. That's a fantastic theory. I've never heard of it before.
I think
But I would also, it's very interesting. But I would also say, stranger things have happened, man. Girls and guys, people have met
You're not
once
wrong.
and then just live together. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
just feel like it flies in the face of Padme's character, though, from what she was in episodes 1 and the beginning of episode 2. Because she even looks at Anakin at one point in episode 2, and she's like, "Stop looking at me like that." And he's like, "Why?" And she's like, "Because it makes me uncomfortable," and turns around and walks away. Like,
are you sure that's not her weirded out by that someone loves her? You know what I mean?
if
I
I had
think
a
that's what
girl
George
looking at me
Lucas
like
meant.
that, I'd be a little freaked out. I'd be like,
But you're not an adolescent girl, so you
my
might be.
wife looked at me like that, I'd be like, what is wrong with you? I don't know. I think it's an interesting theory. I don't know if I doubt it's canon. I doubt very seriously that that's canon.
No, I don't. It's just a theory. Clearly, it's not
Because
canon.
the
But
other
no,
thing
it's
is, why did she
very
die
interesting, though.
afterwards, right? Of the broken heart? Or was it because that influence was gone and it just drained so much of her out? You know what I'm saying? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, there's stuff, you could really, if they were to come out and say that's what happened, they could spin it in a way that it worked. And that's if you read everything and you knew that it worked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's an interesting theory. I love questions like this because it really makes you think about the what ifs in Star Wars and maybe what was going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. Because there's been stuff that happened in the movies behind the scenes we didn't know about until later on a book comes out or something like that. And we're like, oh, that was happening at the same time. Cool, And so it's interesting. So anything else you want to add on that question before we sign off?
No, on the contrary, that was a great question. That
It was.
sent us on a ride.
Yeah, I love questions like that. So, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Be sure to check out our Facebook page. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at SW Canon Podcast, and be sure to check out our website, starwarscanon.net. You can go on there and find not only the entire timeline for Canon, but you can find the entire timeline for Legends as well. So it's all going to be on there. You can find this show also. If you guys want to get a question on the show, I'll put it up one more time for you guys. You can send your questions into starwarscanonpodcast@gmail.com. And we'll go through and pick a couple out. Make sure to hit the subscribe and follow button on whatever platform you're listening in on, and give us a follow so you know when a new episode comes out. Next week, Usef, I think you said you're not going to be here next week.
Yeah, I'm actually traveling for a little bit. I got some work thing I got to do outside of the country, and it's also hopefully going to be a few days off as well. Change of scenery. Enough Tatooine desert for me. I gotta go get some Alderaan forest in me. Going to Europe for a little bit, just under a week. So. Yeah, you might be flying solo next week. I might find the time to be able to do this next week, but probably I'll be dead tired. Since next week, actually, a week from today is gonna be my birthday anyway, so that's gonna be nice. I wasn't planning on celebrating my birthday outside of home, but yeah, that's what's gonna happen.
Fair enough. Yeah, well, I'll probably find one of the other guys. They want to hop on with me or whatnot. Hopefully, we'll have some news to talk about. So,
absolutely.
All right. Well, until next week, guys. This is Brian and Usef signing off. May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you guys.
You've just been listening to the Star Wars Canon Podcast. You can catch new episodes of the podcast every Saturday night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on whatever platform you're listening on right now. If you like this episode, do us a huge favor and hit those like and subscribe buttons and give us a follow so you're notified whenever new content drops. If you'd like to get a mailbag question on the show, you can email us at starwarscanonpodcast@gmail.com, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and check out our website, www.starwarscanon.net. Those links can be found in the description of this episode. All opinions expressed on this show are those of the speaker and may not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of everyone else involved on the panel. This show is produced and edited by me, Brian Miller, with music composed by Brook Munro.